Wix Studio, the platform for agencies and enterprises to manage clients and projects with max efficiency, sharing Wix's SEO tech to help you drive growth.
Fix errors, waste, and issues in a couple of clicks. Get alerted whenever you're off track. Sign up at trueclicks.com.
Hello everyone, thank you so much for coming to my talk. I'm actually surprised how many are here considering last night was quite a heavy night, so thank you so much. My name's Olivia, I'm a digital PR manager at Bring Digital, and I'm going to talk to you today about how to get links when your campaign isn't newsworthy. So imagine this, you've done a fantastic brainstorm, you've got some really great ideas, the team love them, they're excited to outreach them, the client loves them as well. But you've done it for a month and you've got not one single link, not one bite from a journalist. So what do you do in this instance? But before we jump in, I think it's really important to have a look at the current media landscape. A few years ago, we were in a national pandemic that affected how we communicate with one another. So it also impacted the media. And a result of this, and obviously most currently, is we know that there's been mass redundancies across media publications, most notably Reach PLC. And because of that, there are now more PR professionals than journalists. So what does that mean for us? Well, it means competition is tougher, timing is tighter, and just generally it's really hard work. So I just want to have a touch upon some of the current tactics. So just a show of hands, I'm going to give a few options. How long will you spend selling in a story before you change your approach? So is there anybody that kind of does about 2 weeks before they change their approach? Any show of hands? Okay. A week? 5 days? Okay, interesting. I asked the same question on Twitter, and these were the results. And I'm with these, with the 57%. We live in a time where we just don't have the luxury of time, but I will go into why a little bit later on in my presentation, but I'm kind of leaving you all on a bit of a cliffhanger there. So what do we actually need to change in order to make our campaign newsworthy? And it consists of 4 things. So it's your materials, it's the pitch, it's the timings, and it's the relationships. So if we look at the materials, we have to persuade journalists to cover our story. And Rory Sutherland, who is the vice chairman at Ogilvy, put it in a quote on one of his TED Talks. And he said, persuasion is often better than compulsion. And he put it into this comparison of speed cameras. So on one side, we've got a traditional speed camera. And on the other side, we've got these speed cameras that flash a smiley face when you hit the speed limit. And he says that the newer speed cameras cost about 10% of the running cost, but prevent half as many accidents. So that baffles economists because this smiley face has a better impact than a £60 fine and 3 penalty points. Now, I'm not saying that we should be charging journalists and giving them penalty points if they're not going to cover our story, even though it would make our lives so much easier. We have to be able to persuade them. We have to inflict that emotional trigger. But how? I bet some of you are sat there thinking, how are we going to do it? And it all starts with using relevant data and insights. There's a range of free resources out there at the moment. We've got YouGov data, we've got ONS, we've got Twitter polls, we've got X, Instagram, whatever. We can really get those free data sources to make our campaign more interesting. So I included a picture here, bin collection. So that, off the bat, is quite a dry subject. I'm really sorry if I offend anyone, but bin collection is just not interesting at all. But when I was looking into this for my talk, I found that you can actually get a £100 fine if you leave your bin on the street for longer than it's supposed to, so after collection. Well, that certainly makes things more interesting. So if you have got a dry topic, just getting that one piece of data and insight can be the make or break. But if you're not sure where to start, the best thing to do is just to get a small poll or a group of you together within the agency. get a focus group, or if you can, have the target audience within the agency and get them to vote on the data and stats that they find most interesting. So you've got all your data and insights, you've got the data that's going to inflict that emotional trigger to the journalist, but how do you put it into a good pitch email? But why do you need to change your pitch email? So if nobody knows what this is the Muckrack State of Journalism report, and they ask about 2,000 journalists across the globe how and where they get their information from, what they consider a good expert, that kind of thing. And we found from the report that 92% of journalists prefer to be pitched via email. Fantastic. What I found most interesting is why they immediately reject otherwise relevant pitches, with the top one being lack of personalisation, second one, bad timing, but also the fact that it's too lengthy. So whilst you might have a really great campaign, your pitch email can really let you down. So this is a rule anagram that I use with my team when it comes to pitching. So when we've got a campaign, I sit them down and we go through this for the pitch email. So it stands for relevant, unique, links, and easy to read. So relevant, are you sending that pitch email to relevant journalists? If not, just check. It's really easy. Is it unique? Have you got that data and insights that's going to inflict that emotional trigger? Are there links? Make sure that there's links in the pitch email for journalists to be able to access more information. And is it easy to read? I always say journalists need to know within the first 2 sentences what you're trying to pitch them. And this is a really great example of this. So I attended a talk by Abby Bennett. She did a whole talk about the psychology of pitching, and she used this example. And we can see that within the first 2 sentences, what she's trying to pitch. There's links in there so journalists can get more information. And she raised a really interesting point with this. So while we know that journalists are wanting to be pitched via email, we don't know how they're reading their emails. So are they reading it from a laptop, a mobile phone, a tablet? So just including a long form URL is making their lives so much easier. It's relevant. It was done when we were working from home. Now, we might not always have the opportunity to link to something, but if you are looking within the news and finding that newsjacking opportunity, pop it in your pitch email. It makes it so much easier. And it's unique. It was the world's official top 10 favourite working from home hits. And these were just some of the titles that campaign got picked up in. But timing, so if we go back to that Twitter poll that I did, 57% are waiting about 5 to 7 days. And the reason that I'm with them is we know there's now more PR professionals than journalists, so we don't have the luxury of time. We are going to know within 5 to 7 days if you've not had a response from a journalist or even one link, we need to change something. So if you can take anything away from today, it's that you've got to change your timing. You've got to be quicker at changing your approach, and you've got to be more decisive. So the relationship, so you've got your data and insights now, you've got your pitch email, but who do you send it to? So another show of hands, how many of you think building relationships with journalists can make your campaign successful? Okay. So I asked the same thing on Twitter, and this was the response. And it is the truth. Obviously, we know journalists are being pulled in so many different directions. They're covering so many different types of desks that we have to build those relationships to get the insights from them. And it can really be the make or break of a campaign. So from Muckrack, this was some other stats that I took, which I found really interesting. So 66% of journalists are actually tracking how many times their story is being shared on social media. And 90% are actually using Twitter or X. So what does that mean for us when it comes to building relationships? Well, it means that we need to be using social media. If you can, and you're not breaking sort of any NLA issues, if you've got a fantastic piece of coverage, tweet about it and tag the journalist in it. That's a really just quick and easy way of building up that relationship. If you've got an influencer team, one tactic that's worked really well for me is I've got influencers to green screen coverage that I've secured, and then I've sent them it to the journalists and said, look, this is what we've done for you. These are the views, these are the comments, the positive sentiment. Anything to boost their profile works really well. And this is just some of the places that I've got coverage off the back of building relationships. In fact, these journalists I've built that good relationships with, that they gave me insights into what they're working on, so I can actually rejig my pitch email in order to suit them. It's also helped me when we come to campaigns. I've been able to ask them, is this going to work or not? So it does work. Just spending that little bit of extra time getting to know somebody can really be successful for you. But how? I bet a few of you sat there, but how? Like, I've tried it, it's just not working at all. And it all starts with a hello. So before any new campaign starts, I always intro myself and my clients to new and existing contacts. I let them know what I'm working on, what topics I can give them comments on, and just really keep them in the know. I also use reminders. Obviously, we work in a really busy environment that we don't always remember to maybe send hello to a new journalist at The Sun or the Mail Online. So just setting reminders can be really helpful. And I send them trends, so anything like Google Trends, anything that's trending on TikTok, anything that's trending on Twitter, even if I'm able to, client business news, so any updates within the business that I'm allowed to share, I share it with them, and it really keeps them in the loop in terms of what's going on. The response is that it might not always be instant. However, a few weeks' time, it's worked really well. They've come back and they've gone, okay, I really need a comment on X, Y, and Z. So just make sure, if you can take anything away from today, and if you are in the process of sending out a campaign and it's just not working, use that little bit of extra time, build that sort of solid media list of 10 contacts, and say hello and intro your clients. But sometimes, so you might be sat there thinking, oh, but I really want to see them face to face, but I just don't have the budget or I'm not allowed to. Online tactics work just as well. Praise. Journalists love praise. So if you've read an article that you absolutely love, send it to them and say how much you enjoyed reading it. Keep track. So I keep a really rigid eye on X, Twitter, any sort of media databases that we use. They have job announcement boards. I keep a rigid eye on that. And if there's a contact that I'm really wanting to target and they've moved jobs, I just send them a congratulations email. That really helps to build up that positive rapport with them. And ask, this could be quite controversial, but sometimes just asking journalists how they want their information to be received, whether it's they want the pitch email in the body of an email, as an attachment, anything. They're not always going to come back, disclaimer, but those that do, it's just really insightful. And that's what helped me get that coverage in the previous slides, just by asking. However, this may seem like the magic formula, and you might do all of this and sort of still not get any coverage. So what do you actually do in that instance? And I think it's really important just to take a deep breath and relax. So you all take a deep breath and relax. It's quite awkward, isn't it? But I think the metaphor for it is that sometimes we have to sit in that uncomfortableness and know that it's okay. In our line of work, we're almost sort of so focused on getting results that we can almost not check in with ourselves. We've all been there. We've done it. I mean, I've been there where we've sent out a campaign and we've just got no coverage at all. And it can almost feel like we're a bit of a failure. For whatever reason, it's just not making. And I think in that instance, it's just really important to take a deep breath and follow these 3 steps. So if it's not working, or if anyone in this room is doing a campaign that is just not making, flag to the client ASAP. Just tell them, just be honest why it's not working, but make sure that you discuss next steps and offer a solution. So whether that's you're going to pause the activity, fine, and pick it up in the next few weeks, whether it's you're going to take an expert comment from that press release and use it for reactive activity. We are living in a world where it's even harder to get coverage. So I think the best thing to do, and in my experience, is just flag. And it is sometimes the best just to pause it. And this is an example of where I did just that. So I work with a fashion brand, and we did loads of research around the top 10 most expensive places to attend a UK wedding. We had so much data. We found when wedding season was, so we were able to time our outreach during that, and it just didn't make. So we went back, we got some more data and insights, we worked on our pitch email, and we spent time building relationships, and it just still wasn't making. So I flagged to the client, I discussed next steps, and we paused it. But then the next few weeks we picked it back up, and it did make. Sometimes the best thing to do is just to come back to a campaign with a positive mindset. But the learning from this is because we were honest with the client, they trusted us. So when the campaign was successful, we were able to get more work out of them because they trusted our expertise. So sometimes something that's not making might actually have a positive outcome. And I promise I'm coming to an end. So just a few key takeaways to remember. So don't wait too long to change your approach. That 5 to 7 day mark is the perfect mark. So if you're not getting anything, even if you're not getting any responses back, change it. And remember the 4 things. So your approach consists of those 4 things: your materials, your timings, your pitch, and your relationships. And it's actually okay to hit pause. It's not a failing. Sometimes it's actually the best thing. So if you are in the room and you've been going out with something for a few weeks, maybe just look at pausing, but make sure to flag to the client and discuss those next steps. And I just wanted to finish with this quote, and it's from Sir Ken Robinson, and he is a British author. And he says, if you're not prepared to be wrong, you'll never come up with anything original. And I think in our line of work, we're in this hamster wheel where we're constantly wanting to get results and we're constantly wanting to hit KPIs, that we can often be afraid to fail, to make mistakes. But some of the best learnings and some of the best results I've ever had is by making mistakes. So just to sort of wrap it up, I just want to say, do not be afraid to be bold, to be creative, to think outside the box, and don't be afraid to get a telling off from the Times news desk. So thank you very much.
Monthly reporting making you want to shove sharp things up your nose? Try Dragon Metrics, the all-in-one SEO software with mind-blowing reporting tools.
Demand Sphere. Limitless visual insights from the SERPs. Unlimited dashboards and users. Easy to use and easy to scale your growth to new levels.